about. Like I got 50, 50, 50, and 51. Okay. So I always had this belief that Wits pushed me through, that I was not actually supposed to be a chartered accountant, and there was some sort of statistical thing where you don't have to always put these labels on yourself, and you can evolve and be something completely different. And so entrepreneurship right now is the identity that I'm really enjoying, and it might morph into something else. I might become a stay-at-home mom, and that they're telling us as entrepreneurs that this is such a good thing because you create jobs for other people, you're creating a job for yourself, so you're not like a dependent on the state. And I totally agree with that, but there's so much red tape, there's so many barriers to entry.
Because a lot of business owners would have thrown in the towel. Hi guys, welcome back to another video. My name is Presh, and today in studio I'm joined by Khanya Modipa, a chartered accountant and CEO and founder of Slay with K Fitness. That sounds so good. Hi Khanya.
Hi Precious, how are you doing?
I'm great, and yourself? Thank you so much for making the time.
Oh, of course. I was so excited to have this conversation with you.
You were actually one of the first people I reached out to when I had this idea.
Really?
Yes. Aww. So I'm so excited to have this conversation.
I'm just blown away by the level of professionalism. I just want to say you're taking this so seriously. I love intentionality, and I can see it seeping through with everything here.
Thank you so much. Maybe let's start with who Khanya is.
Yeah. Well, Khanya Modipa, as you said, is a chartered accountant, CEO, and founder. I don't know why I'm speaking about myself in the third term, third person. But I am honestly a person who just loves freedom and loves to pursue things that allow me to be the best version of myself. And in the beginning, of course, I started out as a chartered accountant because
if you're a student looking for educational resources, including past papers, or if you're looking to book a coach or a tutor for any module in your accounting science qualification, including CTA, then this platform is for you. Visit gaplearning.co.za to access free educational content or shop Gap Learning's online store for comprehensive summaries.
Because at the time, that was what I was good at. I was good at accounting. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I don't know any 18-year-old that knew what they wanted to do. So I was good at maths, was good at English, did a bit of accounting in school. And it was all the rage back then. And when I say the rage, this was like probably in 2010, where everybody was like, it was the fancy thing to be a chartered accountant. All the parents got this memo. So I was part of that. And then I quickly realized that it was much harder, and with everything in life, like you really need to genuinely love it in order for you to do well at it. And I think I did okay in it, but I didn't think I was really thriving.
School-wise?
No, just like school-wise, definitely at Wits, like that was so hard. But also I just felt like at work as well, I didn't know if I was truly a 9-to-5, like sit in front of the desk and do your work. I'm a water cooler girl, right? I am the kind of person who loves to have conversations with people. Like, so John, what did you do this weekend, right?
Yeah.
And I just didn't feel like this was sort of the space for that. So I feel like when you going back to your question about who Khanya Modipa is, she's just somebody who loves to have good conversation with people. I love to connect. I love to pursue things that I'm passionate about. And I think that's what brought me into the fitness world and becoming a founder of an e-commerce activewear company. Because during the pandemic, everybody was just feeling so down, didn't know what to do with their time. And I focused on what I could control, which was working out. And I was fortunate enough that my workout videos, became viral, and people really took to not only the workouts, but I think maybe perhaps my personality.
Big time. Your Instagram stories are so entertaining.
Oh, thank you. Because I'm like, there's so many obviously like people who do fitness stuff. So I don't know if I'm doing anything revolutionary. But I felt it was important to be exactly myself. And I try to always portray that on social media as well. So I decided to do this side hustle at the time because, of course, I was still a full-time professional working as a managing consultant in Washington, D.C., but I really felt like I needed to pursue entrepreneurship somehow because I didn't feel like I was an entrepreneur, but this just felt so natural to me. And I'm one of those people who's really, when you ask me like who I am, I'm also a person who's really guided by my intuition and by God and his purpose for me. So it just felt right. When you're just in something, you're like,
Yes.
I don't have to struggle too much. Like even when it's a struggle, it doesn't feel like you're going against the grain. You're not going against who you are as a human being.
Yeah.
And that's how I got into entrepreneurship, and I became a founder and CEO of my brand, which I love and I'm super passionate about.
I can see the way you're glowing when you speak about it.
Thank you.
Where did you do your articles? I just want to get like.
So I
the
did my
background before
articles.
saying, okay.
I did them at KPMG.
Okay.
And funny story. So I actually became a bursar at Sasol.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was one of those like really forward children, and I just felt like I needed to take care of my future. My parents could have paid for me to go to university, honestly, but I was like, no, I want to be responsible for my future. So I remember I was 17 and I decided that I was going to look for like scholarships, and I got, lucky enough to get an interview with Sasol, and
that's amazing.
they thought, okay, cool. Like we'll give you the
that's
bursary.
great.
It's great. And at the time I didn't know this, but as you go into your first, second, third year, you realize like, oh, like money is a real thing in articles. And I didn't know I'd signed up with one of the best companies in the world to really get good money. Because like no one loves accounting, guys. Okay, no, I'm lying. But a lot of people are not necessarily passionate about accounting. They're passionate about the money that accounting is going to give them. Like, let's be real.
Yeah.
So I just quickly realized that, articles, like where you do your articles determine how much money you're going to actually make during those 3 years. So for me, I had heard that, Sasol was one of the best companies, to get like, it's one of those, it's a really good paying employer.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, this is great. So little did I know that Sasol was phasing out their not CTA, their trainee CA program.
okay.
And I was the unfortunate soul that we were the final year.
Okay.
So they were like, our previous auditor was KPMG, so you go to KPMG. It wasn't even like a question of like, hey, what would you like to do? It was, you're going to KPMG. And because I'd heard all these like stories about audit firms, I was so intimidated, and I what
honestly, stories
honestly,
exactly?
oh my gosh, where do we begin, right? It's just that the work is just so much.
Okay.
Partners don't listen to you. You're not going to be paid as much. You're just overworked and underpaid, essentially. And I had not planned that, because you know how, like, when somebody's like telling you you're going to get 10,000 Rand or whatever amount, you're already like spending the money.
Like,
so I'd already
spent
I'd already spent 6 months of my salary. And now you're telling me that's not what I'm going to be. I'm basically what I thought I was going to get in 6 months, I was going to get like in 3 years from KPMG. So it was just like really embarrassing, like also because I told everybody that I was going to go to Sasol and I don't even have to worry about these fairs, the career fairs that happen. I just didn't even involve myself. So I had no idea what KPMG could offer me.
Yeah.
But I'm grateful that they actually, sometimes this intervention, you don't really see how important and impactful it's going to be in your life until you actually go through it. And I realized like it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me.
How so?
Even with the ups and downs. So I mean, it was hard work. I still feel like that was the most incredible learning curve of my life. But I think it's also because you're coming from university and you have this sort of theoretical academic thing about you.
Yeah.
And then you go into the working world and you realize that, wow, there's just so much you don't know.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I think KPMG was beautifully designed in the sense that it's a great learning environment. It's very harsh in terms of like people are not going to coddle you or baby you. So they expect you to become a high performer really quickly. But I think that's what you need in order for you to do really well in the corporate world, especially in corporate South Africa. It can be quite cutthroat. And so I felt that, despite the difficult situations I found myself in my article years, I would not be the professional that I am today if it were not for the experience that I got at KPMG. I still lean onto so many things that I learned at KPMG. So I honestly, looking back, I think it was one of the best experiences of my life, even though at that time I felt like I was dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. But isn't that the case?
Yes, definitely. Yeah. So after articles, you get signed off, then where to next? Just a quick recap on your...
So articles, during my articles, I realized I'm not an audit person. I'm just not the kind of person who enjoys checking people's homework. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
And also I didn't want to come into a room and people are like, oh, they're
The
here
auditors.
again, you know, like I don't want people rolling their eyes, you know, I also don't want to be there, you know, like I'm just doing this because I want my CASA.
Yeah.
So I thought, okay, I just need something that doesn't revolve around people hating my presence.
Okay.
So I had heard from a couple of the third years, because I was a second year at the time, that there was this company that was looking for consultants in the US. So I decided to apply for that. So I became a consultant. I moved to the United States. There were opportunities through KPMG, but they were only in England. And I was like, I'm not doing that. Like weather affects me so much, and I'm not doing that.
Thing, right?
Yeah, and I was like, I'm looking for a place where you obviously they're English speaking, but I'm also not trying to suffer through the weather. So DC I felt was like a great happy medium at the time. I thought it was, but then I realized the winters are like 9 months long. South Africa is so blessed with weather. That's the one
really
thing we can
is.
genuinely say
And brag about.
and no one can come for us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I know we're wearing sweaters, but it's not
Yeah,
that cold
no, it's
today,
not. It's
especially
honestly
because
not.
we're in May. And
It's supposed to be freezing,
Exactly.
you know. So the opposite, like the northern hemisphere version of this, people would be like in like jackets and stuff. So we're really good.
we are.
So yeah, I did the DC thing for 5 years. I was a managing consultant. And that was really great as well, in the sense that it really broadened my horizons. Like where articles sort of gave me the professional means to do well. I felt that the consulting world sort of spread my horizons and my views of life and what
Okay.
people are doing in order to make money and all of these different industries that you get exposed to. And America's huge.
So what
I mean,
exactly
it's
is
huge.
consulting? Is it like you have a business
Yeah.
and you need advice on what's the next step or guidance, etc., etc.?
Exactly that. I mean,
Okay.
consulting comes in so many different ways, but for me as like a financial consultant, my background having been in accounting and risk and all of that, it was more so like what had I learned in my audit years to help the client not get into trouble with the auditors.
Okay.
And also just to be more efficient, because so many of these companies were growing exponentially and they needed to have systems that would support that. So as a consultant, I would come in and I would see, okay, you're having this many transactions a day, but you have this particular accounting package that's not going to really support where you want to go in the future. So
Yeah.
these are the things that I think you need to do in order to streamline and make it easier, not only for your business to grow and make money, but also for the people who actually are running the engine in the finance department, so that they don't quit because they're so overwhelmed and burnt out, right? You want people to have a sense of purpose when they come to the office, and no one wants to do the tedious work. So my responsibility was to help them sort of implement systems that would help to automate a lot of these things. So that's pretty much what we did as business transformation consultants. There's different types of consultants. You're also a risk consultant, which is very much focused on trying to make sure that your internal controls are great by the time the auditors come in. They're like really impressed with you. But I didn't really like that sort of compliance work. I really wanted to go into processes. I really wanted to go into systems. And I think I did really well enough that I obviously got to Google, which was another another whole different world altogether, being in tech in Silicon Valley.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
How did you get into there?
So I had this recruiter that kept sending me messages on LinkedIn, and I honestly thought it was like a scam, because like why would Google send me an email?
I love that you say that, because a lot of people think it's giving Nigerian
Yes,
princess.
yes, like, you know, like if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And so I was like, who is this woman and why does she keep harassing me about a job? So that happened in my first year actually at being in consulting.
Yeah.
So I was like, why? Why would you want me? You're Google,
Yeah.
you know? And like, don't you have people who are like clamoring to get a role there? So I just thought it was a bit odd. But I looked into it further because I was just going through a lot. I think moving to a whole new country and being in consulting, which is a different industry, to being in audit, I was like, maybe I should just try a different company and see. So I interviewed for Google, and I went all the way to the final round, was flown out to San Francisco and everything, but I didn't make it. And I think that was so devastating, because you know when you don't want something and then eventually you're like,
you do.
I
You come
want
to terms with
this?
it. Yeah.
Like, I think I want this. Oh my gosh. And you start spending the salary again in your mind, right? Because like Google is, you know, known to pay really well.
Yeah.
So I didn't get it, but every year she would just keep contacting me for new roles, and I wasn't getting it. So at some point I was like, girl, like I'm just
Stop.
dumb. Maybe I'm just
No,
too dumb.
stop.
Oh no, seriously, because it's like Google, you know, it's like the Harvard of companies, you know? So I was like, I'm just maybe not the smartest or the brightest person. But I think it was really that I it wasn't the right fit. And, like God has a way of like finally creating an environment that would be the one for you. So I just, it was just not the right fit for 5 years, honestly. In fact, it was in my that 5th year, the final interview I had with her, I was like, girl, it was lovely.
Did you actually say that?
Yeah, I was going to say that to her because she reached out again. She had reached out to me around April, May for one role at YouTube. And I did well, but I didn't make it.
Okay.
And then
did you also get flown out?
No. I was in South Africa.
Okay.
And so I didn't make it. And I was like, I was telling my sister, I'm like, I don't think I'm Google material, it's fine, And she called like literally like a few weeks later and was like, hey, there's this other role. And I was like, girl, let's just call it a wrap. But I don't want to tell her that. My sister's like, no, don't do it. Like, just keep going. And that's the one that I got, when I'd completely, I'd relaxed, I think, into it. I was just sort of like, if I make it, I make it. If I don't, I don't. And sometimes you need to approach things like that in life where it's like, it's not going to be your end all and be all of life.
Yeah.
And I got it. And I moved to San Francisco for a year. That's good.
And where does Slay with K fit into all of this? When did you start that?
So Slay with K actually fit into the pandemic.
Okay.
So I had come back from Washington, D.C. to renew my visa. And it was supposed to be a 2-week process. I don't know what possessed me to take my laptop with me.
Okay. You wanted to leave your...
Yeah, I was going to leave it because it was like, it's 2 weeks, it's December, like I'm just going to take leave,
fair, yeah.
right? So why I would just go back to my job and in January and it would be fine. No. Glad I took my laptop because they were like, no, there's some sort of glitch in the DC side. So I obviously did my visa renewal in Johannesburg, but there was something that was like off in DC. So they weren't able to connect the two. And so they couldn't put the renewal in.
Okay.
So I was like, okay, this is weird. But thankfully I had my... What is this? I had my laptop with me and I was staying with my parents. So I was like, it's going to be fine. And then what was supposed to be like a 2-week wait became a 3-month wait. And then in that 3-month wait, the pandemic hits. And so then I got stuck basically stuck. Well, not really because it's your home country, but like stuck in South Africa. And I was really down, because
I can imagine.
My whole life had now just sort of revolved around where I was in DC with my friends. So it was just weird also to just be back in your family's home and your old bedroom. It was just stifling almost. And I'm sure lots of people could relate to that, where the pandemic did a number on all of us. So I started to work out to sort of release that anxiety and that depression that I felt coming on because I was also working from 3 p.m. to midnight because I still had to keep the DC hours.
Oh my.
So in the days, in the morning or in the afternoon, I would just work out.
I think that's actually when I discovered your Instagram.
Really?
Yes,
so I just started to like work out with like things because you remember like level 5 was intense, right?
It was.
We could not do anything, guys, except like go to the grocery store and go to the hospital. That was it. And even in the grocery store, I don't know if you still remember, like they were so intense. Like there were certain things you were not even allowed to buy in the grocery store because they were trying to like ration things. Oh, it was intense. I remember this because I wanted to buy like a kettlebell and dumbbells and they were like, no, you can't buy that. It's in the restricted section. I was like, what? How is a dumbbell related to the coronavirus? But anyway, so I started to do makeshift like weights at home. So I used like the tomato sauce all gold, and I started to use like baked beans and my mother's couch, brooms, like anything and everything that I could find in the house. I started to use that. I had to be really innovative because there was nothing else. I had to mimic what I would see in the gym with household items. And I think that's really what drew the traction for my audience. And within 6 months, I was able to like grow around 40,000 people because I think people were really rather intrigued with like, this girl's really not making excuses, like we can be like, no, well, the gyms are closed. This girl's like, nah, like I'm determined. But it was for me, it was for my mental health. It wasn't really about my aesthetic. It was my mental health. I thought it was really important to be focused on at least one thing that you could control because the pandemic, everything felt out of control. Everything felt like were we ever going to see the light of day? Because they kept saying, oh, one more week. And then it was like
a whole
2
lot
more
of
weeks.
uncertainty.
There was so much uncertainty. So yeah, Slay with K really became as something that my followers actually named. They named the company Slay with K.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
amazing.
they did. I don't even know who did, but like it just became a thing.
Okay.
And we started doing challenges together, doing lives together. And then a British company actually approached me and they were like, hey, you have the audience and we have the platform. We wanted to create a home-based like exercise app. And I was like, okay, great. But I mean, I want my input on this, like, because I don't want to exploit my audience to something that I don't resonate with. So we worked together and I think it went phenomenally well. But I felt that a lot of the girls were looking at my outfits and they were like, love your outfits. Like, where do you get them? And a lot of them were imports from, Great Britain, from the US, and it's expensive. Customs are so expensive to bring anything over. So I understood that people want to look cute, but it's just like I'm not trying to pay 40% of what I've already paid in pounds or in dollars. So totally understandable. And my sister, who is a plus size woman, was telling me how she felt sort of excluded by the fitness industry. It's this pressure that they have to lose weight and look good and all of this, but the clothes that they're expected to wear at the gym was like a political party shirt, know, or like just these oversized shirts that you don't feel good. And as a girl, like you want to like, bro, when
I feel
you
like that's
look
half
good,
the motivation to work out.
Exactly. So we came up with Slay with K. We found suppliers, and it was really just so great for me to actually create something that was focused on a group of people that were being ignored, And I think that's what I love about Slay with K is that anyone and everyone can select something and it will fit them, because I am thinking about our motto at Slay with K really is come as you are. Like you don't need to lose weight or gain weight in order for you to look good and feel good. Like we will meet you where you are. So if you end up losing the weight, then you'll find something in the collection that will fit you. And if you end up gaining weight, you'll find something in the collection to fit you, because as women, we just go through so much. And I don't want you to be bothered by gym clothing. I want you to be in the gym.
Yes.
Like it doesn't matter, because all our motivations are different. Yeah, some people really want to aesthetically look a certain way, but the majority of us just want to feel like we're in control. We want to have some sense of routine and we want to put ourselves first. And the gym is one of the best ways to really take care of yourself. So yeah, that's where Slay with K came from.
Okay. And then after that, did you go back to the US?
Yes. So in the middle of that was during the pandemic. I grew Slay with K as a side hustle, and then I got the Google job. And Google
How did you
opens.
manage both?
I mean, it was a little crazy, but I'm so grateful for my sister. She's our COO, and she's just so brilliant at managing teams, managing my time, because I was also 9-10 hour time zone difference from her. I was always waking up much later than her. So I honestly think that she's just a brilliant organizer, project manager person. Like I would not have done half of the things that we've done for Slay with K if it were not for her. And it helps that she's also creative. So like when we have the campaigns and whatever, and I'm not around, like she takes so much control over that. She knows what the models should be wearing, where they should be, how they should be posing, what sort of look and feel we're going for. So it really just made for a great partnership, because I know lots of people would advise against that, but
that's
I think
my next question.
Yeah, but I think with like Naledi, she's just as passionate about this because she's the muse for this company, and she sees the importance of having a brand that takes care of plus size women. So she feels just as invested in and as an entrepreneur, there's so many times where I just felt like I want to give up. I'm so I'm done with this. Like I'm working a great job, I'm making money. Why am I doing this? Like why am I putting this kind of extra pressure on me? But she reminds me of the importance of doing hard things to prove to yourself and to the community around you that these things can be done. You can follow through with your vision. So I think it's also that we have very good personalities. I feel not every sibling dynamic could be able to manage working together. But I think my sister and I are the perfect balance of, I'm one of those like headstrong, like we're going to do this and this is how it's going to be and whatever. And Naledi is like sort of like a feeler on things. And it works. It really works. She really pays attention to so many trends. It helps that she's Gen Z and I'm millennial. So, I mean, I don't know if it's like a massive difference, but It's good. It's good to have somebody who's always on the pulse on like what the younger people are into, and I have a pulse on like what people who are in their 30s are into, and then we have this sort of cohesion.
Yeah.
And it works well because she can also tell me like, girl, no plus size girl's gonna wear that. Like, nah, like it's not gonna look good because I am in my body and I'm experiencing certain things in my body and I think they look good, but I'm not thinking what it must feel like for somebody who's plus size. So I think we're a great duo.
Yeah, and on the family and business thing, how does that work? Do you guys lay out the terms? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think Naledi and I mean, we haven't gotten any sort of like serious conflict because we just naturally get along anyway, like regardless of that. But I think with us, what really works is that we have immense respect for one another, first and foremost. And we also understand that each person has their own personal pursuits that this business should not get in the way of, because if it does, then it's going to build resentment. But over and above that, I think we know our own lanes, you know? So like Naledi knows, okay, for the creative aspect, like this is where I'm going to draw from her a lot more, and I expect her to take the lead. And then there are times where, the financial stuff, she's like, so checked out. She just could care less about the finances, the taxes, and all of that. And that's where, I have that strong suit and I deal with that stuff. If I have to do partnerships with FedEx or with, we just recently signed up with a payment portal called Happy Pay. Like all of that, I deal with the legalese and stuff because she's like, I'm trying to be
the creative side.
And I think that really works. That dynamic pays off for us. I wouldn't say we have like some sort of structure where we're like, on Monday we do this, on Tuesday. No,
but I mean more
we
like
don't do
resources and who's bringing what to the partnership.
Yes.
All that written down.
Yeah, no, I think so technically speaking, yes, I legally own Slay with K 100%. I have asked her many times for her ID so that she can own it 50-50 because I think it's a good thing. Like it's really important for her to have like legal ownership for it. And because it's fair, it's only fair. Like she brings in just as much as I do, but legally speaking, I own the company. But I won't be for that long. Like I have been pursuing her about her ID so that we can get that done because it's such a simple thing. It can be done on the CIPC, so why not? And I think it's only fair. Yeah.
So what is a day-to-day? What does your day-to-day look like?
I love that question because I have no idea. No, really. I literally just came from a trip from South Korea. And then from Korea, I flew to San Francisco. And in the middle of that, I was developing a course, which is out now. So I also work as an instructor I was hired by Coursera, which is basically like those online academies.
Interesting.
And they asked me to help with the digital marketing course that they were launching. So I was building out that based on my experience, or I was leveraging my experience from Slay with K and how I built my audience. And I wanted to share that with people who are social media managers, or if they were like small business owners, etc. So my 6 weeks was basically dedicated to writing out this course, filming this course, working with the entire group to make sure that this is a really good product to hand over, because it would obviously live on the internet forever and anyone and everyone across the world could use it. So that was my main focus. And I think this is where, again, it's helpful to have a family member that really understands that this is such an important thing, because Naledi was then behind the scenes really working on Slay with K. So it depends on what's like really important to me at that time. So that the course was really important to me. Other times it will be like a company will ask me to do an ad campaign for them for social media purposes, I
actually noticed that you don't have much ads.
I don't do much ads because for me, I think I have a very unique and interesting voice on social. I just kind of feel like it's very interesting. I did a whole course on brand identity, and I know what my brand, like Slay with K's brand is. But I'm still like unsure of what is my personal brand, because I started off as like a fitness influencer. But I was an accidental influencer. Like I wasn't planning on being a content creator per se. I just started making content and then people were watching me, So I never had this like, I'm going to be a content creator and this is what I'm going to do. So I think I understand why brands don't know necessarily like how to partner with me, because I'm also this person who's giving financial advice, and I'm talking about dating. Then I'm talking about moving across the world,
And then studying.
And studying and all these things. So I can understand why brand managers are a bit like, what does she do? My managing team also is like, what do you do exactly? And I hate being caged. Yeah, and I hate being caged. And I'm also really good at saying like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't do that. I don't use that product, so why would I do that?
Yeah.
You know, because I hate nothing irritates me more as a person who consumes content as well, like to feel duped by the person I'm following.
Yes.
You know, and
like
I never
I've been
want
using this for the last year, and you know they haven't.
And they haven't. And I feel like my audience literally followed me for a specific reason. I think it was genuinely for my personality and like my workouts. And then of course they've grown to see other parts of who I am and the ups and downs I've experienced, you know. It just felt a lot of the times it felt inauthentic. You know, a lot of my content lately was about me being laid off and trying to get over depression and anxiety. It would feel weird to then be like, and then this lipstick, you know, like it just, I don't know. I'm not trying to knock anyone's hustle because you have to get paid. And I have been very privileged in that content creation is not my like bread and butter per se. But I just feel like I don't want to ever come off as like I'm trying to make money off of. I mean, people have to eat. I get that. We have to monetize these things. I totally understand that. But I just never want people to feel as though she's only using us for this. So I'm very picky about the brands that I end up getting, or working with.
And what are some of the challenges you faced running Slay with Care?
Oh, where do I begin? I think the biggest challenge was definitely from an administrative perspective. Like, I just feel, and this is my biggest gripe with our government, is that they're telling us as entrepreneurs that, you know, this is such a good thing because, you know, you create jobs for other people, you're creating a job for yourself. So you're not like a dependent on the state. And I totally agree with that. But there's so much red tape. There's so many barriers to entry. I mean, just even like Slay with K and coming up with the manufacturing for it was such a nightmare that I had to end up outsourcing to China, which I don't want to do that. I want to be able to empower other businesses who are in the manufacturing space, but there's nothing like the stuff that that we need for Slay with K in the South African space. Or if there is, it's so expensive that I would go under. Like no one is. So from a manufacturing perspective, I'm already like in the situation.
Imports worked out to be cheaper.
Imports worked out to be much cheaper, but to even import, I love that you use the I word because it took me a year to get an importing license.
Oh.
So I started the company like in 2020, I believe is when I registered for it, but I could only launch in 2021. Why must it take a year to get an importing license? That's so demoralizing.
What
honestly.
was the reason for the delay?
It's SARS.
Oh, okay.
It's SARS. And it's just, there's so much inefficiency in a lot of these government agencies and they're holding us back. I think nobody really realizes that as they write these policies and this legislation that we're supposed to abide by as citizens, because you want to be a law-abiding citizen, there are so many hoops that you have to go through in order for you to get something done, you know? Even something as simple as like proof of address. And it's like, that's lovely in a utopia where everybody has proof of address. But in reality, it's like we live in South Africa. A lot of people are doing these things at home, living with their parents. You know, like now you have to get a phone bill so that your name has to be on a lot of paperwork, but they forget that you're an entrepreneur. Like you're living at home and you don't actually pay these bills. So you can't have your name on a lot of these things. And like it was just so frustrating for me from that perspective. And then I think the biggest challenge right now, I think for Slay with K right now is just that a lot of the stuff I import is in USD, so it's dollar denominated, but I sell in rands.
Okay.
And obviously, you've probably seen the rand is much weaker against the dollar, especially these past like 2 years. So South Africans are, of course, naturally going to be price sensitive. And so it's difficult for me to hike up my prices to be able to compete on a global level, because I see Slay with K on a global level, like to compete with them when my prices are steered towards a South African market. So we are trying our best to, you know, look out for the international market to sort of compensate for what the South African market cannot cannot carry us through, financially at least. I mean, it's difficult because people have their idea of what they would want to buy, and they tend to buy from very big companies, which I totally understand, because I tend to do the same. It's what's just trusted, it's what people know. So it's hard to like break through, people's mindsets a little bit and be like, hey, support a local business. And it's not even like a pity purchase. It's like, this is a really good product. And a lot of these big companies, they're not necessarily thinking about you and your personal needs. And here's a business that's actually thinking about you and your personal needs. I just think that people sometimes are stuck in their ways. So it's just sort of like shift their mind. I guess that's marketing, right? Isn't it? Like, you're trying to break through that. So those are the challenges, but those are good challenges. Those are challenges that I really welcome, and I wouldn't trade it for the world.
Do you think you'll ever take your Slay with K brand to retailers?
That's my plan, honestly, is like, I would love to do that. I don't think that I would ever build a brick and mortar company. I mean, building of my own. I don't know if I'd ever have like a Slay with K shop in a mall somewhere, but I certainly would love to work with brands like Pick and Pay perhaps, or even like Woolies, somewhere where they have a very good distribution network, a Total Sports. That's something that I really do aspire to. But more importantly, I've also been looking at like, what would it take to distribute to like Target in the US or Nordstrom's and all of that, because again, I'm always thinking about like on a global level, like where are the gaps that, because I feel like even though we as South African women complain about how there's no sizing for us as plus size women, it's the same across the world. Like, it's just like we live in a world that really glorifies a specific size, and women, most women are not that size. I mean, they're not my size, and we need to be able to have access to clothes that make you feel good about yourself. So yeah, those are some of the retailers that I've been looking into.
Exciting stuff.
Yeah.
There's a TikTok video that you recorded.
Oh my gosh. What was
Where you spoke about Slay with K at the 2-year mark.
Yeah.
You were still pouring in more money into it than it was giving out to you.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on that mindset because a lot of business owners would have thrown in the towel by then. So how do you differentiate the business model simply not working and understanding that your business is in the growth stage and be patient with it?
I think it's so difficult, especially if you have never had anyone to be your role model in that sense. Like, it's either people who are starting or people who already made it. Like, I feel like where are the in-betweener people, where they're like
document their journey.
Yeah, who are people are just not documenting, and I understand why, because it's just so stressful and there's this pressure to be perfect and to have like the winning formula and the story that made it against all odds kind of situation. So I don't really have too many people that I could be like, I can look up to that person and I can see how they were able to scale the business. I have no idea if the business honestly is truly a success, because I mean, I've been told obviously that it takes about 5 years for a company to truly be like profitable in the green, and I can't say that Slay with K is anywhere near that because like for the issues that I've mentioned to you. So at times, like I've told you, I feel like I want to give up. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. It's so hard.
Have you actually, what made you feel that way?
What, like, I want to give up?
To give up,
I just think that, when you're working so hard towards something and you have this idea of how it's supposed to pan out and then it doesn't pan out that way, it's just so demoralizing. Like, that it takes hard work, but you don't realize how long it can also take. Like, in your mind, you're like, 5 years. But it's like, you have to live through that 5 years. And there's so many ups and downs. Like, I love the campaigns. I love when people get our stuff and they tell us all this amazing feedback. That is like my high. But there's this like in between where, you're struggling for capital, to be able to buy all this stuff. Like right now we have a campaign for clothes that we want to release, but it's money to get those clothes to be shipped from China to South Africa, and we just don't have necessarily always that working capital. So there are so many times where I do want to give up. I honestly wish I could say like, Slay with K definitely is like a winning formula right now, but that would be very disingenuous of me. It's not necessarily like that, and I think a lot of entrepreneurs will probably have a similar story where they're like, we are selling and that's great, but it's not a company where I could ever pull a salary from right now. I just can't. That's the reality of it. So I am pouring more in terms of my time, my energy, my knowledge, and also some of my own money into it so that it can survive on its own. My vision was not necessarily that this company would pay me, but that it would be something that maybe eventually my kids would one day be able to inherit. But more importantly, just something that I can be like, wow, I did that. Like I actually did that. That's for me more important than the money, because I feel like I can make money in so many other ways. I'm a chartered accountant, so I think it's a good backup plan. But yeah, it's not something that I was like looking to make me rich. Maybe it will, you know, as it gets acquired. That's like
The plan.
the hope and dream. Every company wants to get acquired, right? Like I would love to be acquired maybe one day by the big competitors. But yeah, like I think for me, it's like, wow, because we put these labels on ourselves. Like when I was growing up, I was like, I'm not an entrepreneur. Like it's not me. And I never did well in those, like, you know, those marketing days where you would make something at home and then you would sell it to other people. Like I did not. I used to give them away, and then my mom would be like, okay, so where's the money? I'm like, oh yeah, sure. I forgot about that. So I was never good at that.
Okay, so you're more of a humanitarian at heart.
I think so. I was a 9-to-5er.
Okay.
And there's nothing wrong with being a 9-to-5er. Honestly, I was a 9-to-5er, and I was like, this is just who I am. You know, I was gonna climb up the corporate ladder, and that's just who I am. That's just the girl that I am. But no, entrepreneurship really just came to me through like what I explained with the pandemic, and then I realized, oh, Hans, like, you know, you don't have to always put these labels on yourself, and you can evolve and be something completely different. And so entrepreneurship right now is the identity that I'm really enjoying, and it might morph into something else. I might become a stay-at-home mom and not want to do any of that entrepreneurship stuff anymore. I don't know.
I love that you don't limit yourself.
I don't. And I think that's like, I went to a career counselor after I got laid off at Google. I was like, you know, I really need to find out what my values are so that the next job that I try to pursue is one that is based on who I am as a person. Because I just feel like a lot of the roles that I was taking, yeah, some of them I was really like happy to have. Don't get me wrong. Like who doesn't want to work at Google? But I mean, it was also one of those, who doesn't want to work at Google? That's the pressure.
That's the reason why.
Yes, that you're putting on yourself, and you are sort of not allowing yourself to leave something that might not be good for you anymore, because there's this pressure that, you know, I mean, I don't know how many Black girls, honestly speaking, that are in Silicon Valley, and especially not who are South African. So I just felt that sort of extra pressure of like, you have to represent the country, that kind of thing. I mean, that's pressure you also put on yourself. I don't think people genuinely care that much. And it's a good thing that people don't care that much. But I think you put it in your mind. And so you put these labels on you. And so freedom for me is like my number one value, because I just think that your time is so important. And what you do with your time is, it's like your love letter to God, to your creator, of like, this is my thank you to you. And so if I spent it living the life that other people dream for you, it's sad. Like it's not the best way to go about using the gifts that you've been given. Yeah.
How do you respond to these challenges? Is it do you take it like this is from a higher power? Maybe I'm not meant to be on this path. Maybe I should, change routes completely. Or are you the type that just stays persistent and pushes through with the end in mind?
Honestly, I'm a stressor. First, when a real challenge happens, this is something I'm really trying to work on, is that I freak out, and I feel like I can. That's why I'm also grateful that I work with my sister, who's like, this is her personality. Like, just everybody chill. Like,
Super
this is
understanding.
how Khanya is. Like, especially with my suppliers, I can be like, I mean, I feel like it's a lot, but my sister's like, no, you're not really a lot. Like, you're just passionate, you know? But yeah, I can get very anxious and stressed out about things when they don't pan out the way I'm expecting them to. But I think it's difficult to know for sure if this is something that you should continue pursuing, or whether this is like a sign from God that you need to move on. Yeah. But I think you'll know based on like, if this is a constant lesson you need to keep taking on. Okay. And I think I knew that with my career. Like, you know, I moved from career to career, but I felt then like something, like I would get happy about these new jobs for like 6 months, but then I'd be like, is this really the best use of my time? Is this like really like, when my younger self were to look up to me now and be like, oh, this is what Khanya's doing, would she be like, damn, you know? Or would she be like, oh, okay. Like, I'm happy for you, but I didn't think that this was part of the plan. And the Sunday Scaries is also another thing that for me was like a clear sign that I was not in the right, because here I was working for arguably, again, the best company in the world, right? They have the best perks, you know. I mean, I shared on social media of like free food, flights everywhere, you know, you get really concerts. Like, I remember when we first opened up the Google office after the pandemic, Lizzo came to perform.
Oh, wow.
Right? And they were like, that's not it. You'll have Halsey next time. Like, it was just that sort of like environment that anybody should be happy in, and yet I wasn't. And it wasn't the company. It was that I myself was just going through this struggle of this identity struggle of like, is this the best use of my talents and the best use of my time? And I don't think you'll necessarily know that answer like immediately. Some people do, they're so intuitive. But if you've dulled down your inner voice for so long, which is what I did, it's hard to discern whether this is something that you need to stay in or whether you need to leave and go on and do something else. I think I just wasn't so attuned to my inner voice anymore, because I had listened to other people's voices and other people's projections and expectations, and even my own ego over my real authentic voice inside of me. And so it took actually losing my job to really become sensitive to my inner voice and be like, that doesn't feel right. Because right after you losing your job, what is the thing that you're going to do, right? You're going to find another job. Like that's the panic, right? And I had this pressure because I was on a visa, and you know, if you don't have a job within a certain amount of time, you get kicked out of the country. So there was a lot of pressure to get a job, but something just was like, this doesn't feel right, you know. And obviously the rejections also helped a lot. Like, they were soul crushing, but they helped a lot because they made me see like, girl, like you shouldn't be rejected this much, you know? Yeah, like clearly this is somewhere where God is like, bro, like, hello, this is not for you. But we're so precious, we're so tied to our this identity that we think that we believe we're stuck. That's what makes us stuck, really. It's not necessarily our environment, it's our mindset. It's this notion that you're like, I can only be this one thing because I've invested so much time. It's the sunk cost fallacy that you get into, where it's like, I've already put in 9 years of my career into this thing. Like, what do I have to show for? I'm in my 30s. I'm supposed to be thriving. I can't be less than what I was in my 20s. Like, and especially when you're in your 30s, because everybody has this expectation that you are better for it. Like, you're wiser, you have your money is up, all of these things. You shouldn't be sort of this mess, this chaotic person. And in my 20s, I wasn't as chaotic as my 30s. So I was just kept judging myself from that perspective of like, ooh, like, why is your life so all over the place? And a 9 to 5 is going to help bring that stability, but it doesn't. It doesn't, because it's inside of you. If you have chaos, then everything else around you will also be quite chaotic.
You made Saica top 35.
Yes, 35. I did.
In 2021.
Another surprise. Yeah.
How was that? Did it live up to your expectations? Was it a highlight in your career?
So what was funny is that it's like the Google job. I kept ignoring Saica.
Oh, okay. How does it work? Do they reach out to you?
So people can do it themselves. They can nominate themselves. But I was like, I got 50s. Okay. There's like a story that I'm sure a lot of my followers have already heard about. Like, I got 50, 50, 50, and 51. Okay. So I always had this belief that Wits pushed me through, that I was not actually supposed to be a chartered accountant, and there was some sort of statistical thing where they maybe needed more black women to pass or whatever. So I had that in my mind, that I was actually just like a fluke. My career was just a fluke. So why would I think that I was top 35 under 35 when I was not even believing that I should be a chartered accountant?
Yeah.
You know, so I was never going to apply for something like that. And so you can nominate yourself, and I was like, I'm not going to apply for that. But somebody had nominated me, or several people apparently had nominated me, which is really lovely to hear. And then, so they called me and were like, hey, do you want to just like finish the application? Because there's only so much that the other person can say about you, and you have to want to be nominated. And I was like, I don't know, like, this is weird. And I kept ignoring it until eventually I was like, okay, like, I'll do it. I mean, this is so embarrassing because I'm not going to get in, but I'll just do it.
Yeah.
And I got in.
That's amazing.
I got in, which is like so amazing. And it was a great feeling, because it's sort of like reconciled some of the feelings that I had about myself in terms of my CASA journey, and I felt like I lacked so much because I came in as like a straight A student in university when I came in, right? And then like Wits broke me, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate to the CA journey. It broke me. So yeah, I just felt like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe I actually have to do this and I have to be judged by our fellow CAs. And then I realized like the top 35 and the 35 is nothing like the academic. It's really got little to do with your academics. Unless of course that's what you entered as, but I didn't. I entered in, I was like, actually, why am I being entered into this? Like what was my unique selling point, right? And I think it was just the influence that I had on my community. And I feel like there's so many young aspiring CAs who follow me and want to know what my journey was about, because it's just so refreshing to hear from somebody who's like, I'm actually not doing well. Like I actually struggled through this and this. So don't see me as like this already CA and then assume that like my life is this fairy tale when it's actually not. It's like, even though I've even passed the Wits phase of my life, I'm still going through so many career ups and downs, you know? And so I never want people to ever have this perception that it's this is the end and this is like sort of the thing that you want. And once you have this thing, then money is gonna come like through the roof or something. It's not the case at all. You still have to hustle.
I watched another one of your TikTok videos where you spoke about for you to do well, you need to release the pressure that you have on yourself.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that?
For you to do well, you have to release the pressure. I think so many of us have this, again, it goes back to these sort of, whether subconsciously or consciously, we have these sort of ideas about ourselves that we need to be a certain way, right? And when you're studying, you can't do that. You really can't. You really have to focus on the exam or the tutorial that you're doing or the lecture or you being with your friends and like going through a certain question paper or whatever. Like you can't have this other extra pressure that you're putting on yourself, whether subconsciously or consciously. And I didn't realize that I was doing that until I reached my 4th year and I was really failing. And I thought, oh my gosh, people, not only just like me failing was rough enough, but it was also like, you know, I was seen at home in the family as like the straight A students. And also like my parents really made being a student my occupation. I was not expected to do anything else. I wasn't expected to do any chores. My job was fully 100% to be a student, which I'm grateful for. Obviously, I'm very privileged. But that also put pressure on me. I'm like, oh my gosh, my job is to be a student and I'm still like failing at this. And I don't know what each person's like difficulties that they're going through. But I promise you, if you bring on other burdens on you while you're trying to pursue this thing, it makes it 10 times harder. It's hard enough to do FNAC, MANAC, you know, auditing and tax and go through all those books and try and focus in class. And then you have to think about like, what are my parents going to think? What is society going to think about me? My bursa. I had all of that pressure. I'm not saying that it's easy. I'm not saying it's easy. But I think that's what ultimately led me to actually pass in that final year, was just like, these people will not get anything out of me if I fail. So I need to focus on me, you know? So it was just one of those things that I really needed to really be cognizant of. And I think that everybody needs to be cognizant of, like, do you really need to take this on? Or is this something that other people also need to focus on their own feelings and deal with?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like the fact that you spoke about how not making it like this massive not highlight. Like, it's not the end of the world if you don't pass. And how people make it this huge thing and that you can't see past it, and you know, your life is limited to that almost. And you spoke about how it's not.
It's not.
And there's so much more.
There is so much more. But I also appreciate the fact, it's easier for me to say it now because I'm looking at it hindsight, right? But when you're in it, you don't see it that way. Even when I lost my job, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the end of my life, whatever. No, I think it's just one of those things where you need to sort of reflect on a previous challenge that you had to realize that you were able to get through that, and so you can do the same thing with this. It's the only way. Like, I reflect a lot on my CTA year, and I'm astounded at my level of maturity and bravery and like resilience when I thought it was the end for me, honestly. And I realized, oh, if I was able to display that in this moment where it was crunch time, I can do the same thing this time around. And if I fail, I'm not going to die. Like, I thought I was going to die when I lost my job. I was like, this is it. Like, everybody sees themselves in how they contribute into society. And that was like my contribution to society was working at Google. And I was like, wow, like, it didn't kill me. And I'm fine. Like, here I am talking to you today. I might not be making as much money, but it's, you know, somehow you came into this world with nothing. And then knowledge, now I have this knowledge of like, I will leave this world with nothing. So everything else in between is just like interesting.
Yes, it is.
It
is. What advice would you give to a chartered accountant out there that wants to start a business, that's maybe fearful, that keeps procrastinating and waiting for the right time?
Don't do it.
Wow.
I'm kidding. It's a lot of work. I underestimated how much work goes into being an entrepreneur. So I don't want to kid anyone into that. I think people are really over glorifying capitalism and being a boss babe. And I think you should not do that to yourself. So I honestly feel like as a CA, I think make sure that you're pursuing this thing because this is genuinely what you want, and it's not because you want to appear a certain way. Like, people have this thing about looking busy and productive, and it's really weird because all I want to do is sleep. So honestly, like, that's all I want to do. So my advice to anybody who wants to be a CA is like, good for you. I mean, not a CA, wants to be an entrepreneur and a CA. It's like, good for you. I'm glad that you were able to pursue that because it takes a lot of bravery to do it. But if it doesn't work out, that's also okay. Do it though. Like, actually do it. The learning comes in the doing, because you can sit and want to do your little business plan. I have no business plan. I had none. I literally just went straight into this, which is what most people would say don't do. But I am learning as I go, because I don't think even the business plan that I would have conjured up 2-3 years ago would have held up for now and what I'm experiencing right now. There's just so many things that are coming at you that you cannot plan for. So the only thing I would say is just be very cognizant of your time, because that's going to be chowed up by this business for sure, especially if you're working as a professional while you're trying to do this business. It can be really taxing on your time, and if you're willing to sacrifice that with your time, that's good. But if you know that you love being with your family, you prioritize your health and all of that, then don't do it.
Oh wow, okay. So be willing to make the sacrifices
if you really love it that much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Khanya.
Yeah.
Thank you for making the time.
I'm so grateful for this opportunity. I think that there's so many young people who are not doing what you're doing. So thank you so much for this platform and being so intentional.
Thank you. Where can people find you?
At King Khanya 91. So that's where they can find me on Instagram. Khanya spelled Khanya. I know everybody's like, isn't it Khanya? No.
Yes.
So I'll pronounce it King Khanya 91 so that it's easier for everybody to get it. And that's pretty much where all of my public my public social media facing life is. And it's the same for TikTok as well.
Okay, and where can people shop Slay with K?
Slay with K is on slaywithkfitness.com.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching this episode. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, comment any questions that you have for Khanya. Head over to her social media, give her a follow. Until my next video. Bye.